the spooky Halloween. Ooh. Ghosts, ghouls, dry bones, spooky.
Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to
Confidently Controversial.
It's the show where we rewatch TV shows from not TV shows, movies from our youth.
That's our second podcast.
That's our other podcast.
Coming soon.
Confidently Controversial, the TV version. Because we can't think of a better name. Well, hello, Kim Tweed.
Hello, Emily Paul. What's been going on in your life?
Well, we had like a tropical storm come through.
Yeah, we sure did.
Ophelia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care for the namings of everything. Like now they used to just name hurricanes. Now they name tropical storms, snowstorms.
I'm okay with the tropical storms because generally speaking, the tropical storms become it's a path on the way to potentially become a hurricane. So a lot of times you have it's Tropical Storm Gloria, then becomes Hurricane Gloria.
Does it change names once it becomes a hurricane? No,
it's the same. Mm-hmm. So like if Ophelia had picked up some steam,
she would have became a hurricane.
She would become a hurricane. So it's like in the same, right. So when they start as like a tropical depression, they keep the same name as they pick up the air.
Okay.
So I'm good with that.
They pick up air and that's the science behind a hurricane?
I mean,
isn't it? Just curious what you know.
It picks up the wind and makes it go fast.
Because it's spinning like a tornado?
Kim, let's not get into this and show how dumb we both are.
Oh, no, you're the one that tried to explain it. I never claimed to know anything about the weather.
Okay, well, we had a little tropical storm come through Ophelia. It was very, very windy yesterday, so that is good. I do enjoy the fact that an ex-boyfriend of mine got married yesterday.
Oh, dear.
And I don't know if the tropical storm impacted his wedding.
But I can only hope.
But I also enjoy that it's named Ophelia, who is kind of like woman scorned. She was made crazy by Hamlet. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like it's very apropos.
All right. Seems like you're doing well with this news of marriage.
Doing great. No, it's completely fine.
Is it fine?
It's completely fine. I don't know if you can tell in the tone of my voice how completely fine it is, Kim.
I can tell.
And the other big thing from this weekend is that I decorated for Halloween.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And, our decorating for Halloween is I only decorate for Halloween and for Christmas in my house. Okay, like, I don't do all the Valentine's Day.
No, me either. No. You don't decorate for St. Patrick's Day?
I do not.
Crazy.
I do not. So Halloween, I took out all my Halloween decorations and I put everything out. And when my kids saw it, you would think, I mean, it's not a ton. It's not like crazy Halloween stuff. But you would think by my children's reaction to it that I completely...
You built like a haunted house.
I built a haunted house. I mean, their friend came over late in the afternoon yesterday after everything was already out. And my one son greeted him at the door and he's like, "Get ready for a whole haunted Halloween house."
There's like one picture.
Yeah. And it's like, I believe there's a cross stitch that your mother has made. There's a quilt. There's a lot of your mom stuff in my house. Okay. There's a lot of like little Halloween-y quilts hanging up. Nice. And I enjoy my Halloween decorations. I especially enjoy that I have a Beetlejuice bathroom.
Oh, right.
Yes, that's my favorite part.
You should go to Spirit Halloween. They have a whole Beetlejuice section.
That's where I've gotten a lot of the stuff.
Well, they have a lot of good stuff.
Okay. I'm going to check it out.
You might want to head over there.
I'm going to check it out. Well, I was trying to think, because I have another bathroom, and I'm like, well, should I make that bathroom a different...
Haunted mansion.
Oh. Okay, it's done. It's happening. So, yeah, that's been my weekend. How about you? What's been going on?
We had some visitors... Because my sister hosted a wedding in her backyard.
During the tropical storm.
On Friday. So it started on Friday afternoon. So it was a bit windy. They had like a big tent and everything like that. So we had her kids here for the weekend, which was fun. They had a great time. We built some of those, they're called those mini-verse things. Have you seen you don't know what those are?
I don't.
Oh, you would like them. I'll show you them later.
Oh, cool.
There's they're like surprise balls.
Surprise balls.
Surprise balls. And they have little like crafts in them, and you can build, you can make like mini foods. Like already got one that was like a hot dog, and you can put mustard on it, and then you UV light it, and the mustard like dries.
Okay.
You never seen these?
I've never seen
Oh my God,
these.
I'm fascinated by watching the videos. So then I had gotten them some of these surprise ball things.
Okay.
And, but they were a little too advanced. So when they left yesterday, I was like, well, I'll just do one more by myself.
Sure.
And then I ended up doing all three. And it came with this cute little like shelf thing, and I'm pretty obsessed with it.
Okay, I'm very much looking
I'll
forward
post
to
a
seeing
picture
this.
on our Instagram.
I'm looking forward to seeing this. Well, that is great. Well, I'm so glad to hear all of this stuff. So we are in the Smooky month of October.
Yes.
So what we are doing throughout this month of October is we're dedicating all of our episodes to Smooky movies.
Dedicated.
Mm-hmm. This one's dedicated.
Yeah, I
to
was a little
Smooky
nervous
movie.
about it. I got to be honest. I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, what's she going to pick? And my husband and I were speculating last night what you were going to pick. We had some ideas. He had some ideas.
Well,
but
I'm going to say I decided to go with one that everyone knew I was going to pick. Because I had to pick this one.
Oh, man.
And I know. And let me tell you why I decided to pick this one. So you know what movie it is. So why don't you go ahead and tell the people what movie it is.
It's Poltergeist.
It's Poltergeist. Now, I decided I had to pick Poltergeist because I will often tell people, like if they ask, what's your favorite movie? I will often say Poltergeist. Not because I love it as a movie, but because there's no other movie in my entire 46 years on this planet that has impacted me in the way that Poltergeist has impacted me as a movie.
Okay. But that doesn't make it your favorite.
But I feel like it's I don't know. It's an important movie in my life, I think.
All right.
Because, again, so this movie came out in 1982. And it's kind of been couched as a modern horror classic. For those of you, and since that it came out in 1982, we were 5 years old then. And I know the first time I watched it, it was on HBO.
Okay.
So I'm thinking I couldn't find when it came out on HBO, but I'm thinking it was probably within 2 years after that.
Yeah.
I always thought that I saw it when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
Which
makes sense.
Which makes sense
That's
to me
how
that I
mine
saw
works
it
out.
then. Now, I knew about this movie for a long time because when it came out in the summer of 1982, that summer was called the Spielberg summer.
Okay.
Because you had Poltergeist and you had E.T. And they came out at the same time. They kind of took over everything. Both of them box office smashes.
Oh, really? But like Poltergeist was a big deal too?
They were both. Yeah, Poltergeist was nominated for Academy Awards.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
So, and that's always why I feel like it's a great movie, because it's a good movie.
Is this the one? Carolyn?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, have you seen this movie?
Yeah. This is the Craig T. Nelson?
Yes.
Yeah. Bodies in the yard?
Yeah. You moved. Yeah. Yes.
I saw this movie, yes.
It's a classic.
Yeah,
I feel like it's the kind of horror movie that it's on everybody's list. Like whenever they do all these horror lists,
Right,
they
sure, of
always
course.
put this movie up there. It's just that classic movie. And to me, it's just the premise of it is very scary. It's executed well. It's well acted.
Okay, so tell me why this is the movie that like really you feel like changed your life or impacted you, had the most impact on your life.
So as a 7-year-old watching this movie, and I have very clear recollections of watching it during the daytime on a weekend, and I believe it was in the summer.
With your brother and sister?
With my brother and sister.
And your parents, or just the three of you?
My mom was around, but I don't think she watched it. So what would happen a lot on HBO is that a movie would come out and it would be on, any new movie was on all the time on HBO.
But remember it would premiere at like 8 o'clock on Saturday night.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So I have a feeling that we really wanted to see this movie because, again, it was everywhere. I remember going to the movies because we went to the movies multiple times to see E.T. And I also clearly remember going, and the movie poster for E.T., you had like the two fingers touching, and then the movie poster for Poltergeist with the little girl in front of the TV.
Yeah.
So these things are just emblazoned on my brain, and it was everywhere. Such a huge movie. We probably broke my mom down. Again, if I was 7, my sister would have been 9.
Right.
So
Your dad probably was at work.
Sure, but what they would do a lot of the time, so this movie was rated PG.
Uh-huh.
So
it's only rated PG?
There's a story behind that I found out about.
Oh, dear.
Yes.
Here we go. Let's go.
Let's go. So it's rated PG. Originally, they gave it an R rating.
Okay.
Which it probably deserves.
Seems correct, yes.
Right. And this was pre-PG-13.
Okay.
Now, Steven Spielberg, who, again... there's a story behind that as well. There's a lot of controversy behind the scenes at this movie, this movie, that makes it, I think, also kind of makes it the stuff of legend because it just has so many behind the scenes stories with it. But so they really wanted it to have a PG rating because they wanted it to double feature with E.T.
Oh, so it could Spielberg Summer could continue.
Spielberg Summer.
Okay.
Right. So when it first came out with that R rating, now they had cut back on a lot of the scary stuff in this movie. In the original iteration of this movie, the little girl in it dies at the end of the first act, but they peeled that back. And nobody dies in this movie, and nobody gets really injured even in this movie. There's not a lot of gore aside from like one scene where a guy peels off his face, which I have to say is probably the least scary thing. To me, it's very unrealistic.
Isn't there a lot of lore around this movie and a lot of like, the girl died, right?
It's called the Poltergeist curse.
Right.
There's a lot of lore with that. And I'm going to get into that as well.
Good.
There's so much to talk about with this movie.
Okay.
But then Steven Spielberg really lobbied and then they got it the PG rating. Therefore, my mom and dad watched this movie and thought, well, okay, they really want to see it. Nobody dies. Like, it's, it's a scary movie, but everybody ends up okay in the end. Like, it's fine.
Everyone except Emily.
Exactly. So we watched this, and I have a very clear memory of watching this movie, and it just got me at the core of my whole self, scared, there's no other way to say it. It scared the living shit out of me.
Really?
That I remember just going outside of my house. We had a little swing set like right next to my house. And I remember sitting on the swing set and just thinking about it.
Oh no.
Knowing my world had been rocked, and sleeping was never the same again.
Oh God.
I mean, for years, I couldn't sleep. I thought about this movie so much, and I couldn't understand why my sister wasn't so impacted by it.
Okay, have you ever talked to her about that?
We've talked about it. They went on. My sister will say that the second Poltergeist is scarier than the first Poltergeist. And that's kind of the big thing. So to her, that movie's scarier. Okay. Now, I, of course, never watched that until I watched it one time in college. Okay. I felt like I was, at that point, okay to watch it.
Like you could handle it?
I couldn't.
You were wrong.
I will tell you that to this day, watching this movie, I have a lot of anxiety, even knowing that I have to watch it today with you.
Why'd you pick it?
Because I did it for the podcast.
Oh my God, people.
But I've seen it a lot in the time since. I try and make myself watch it. I do, as someone who appreciates film, I appreciate it as a good film, but it scares me. I had nightmare after doing the research for this. Nightmares last night, Kim. Nightmares. I had nightmares about this movie my entire childhood, where the nightmares would be that I was seeing the movie and I couldn't, because it was a dream, and you can't close your eyes in a dream because your eyes are already closed. So I couldn't look away from it, and I knew I needed to look away from it. Scary.
So when you think about, when you have dreams about the movie, or when you think about this movie, or you are sitting on your swing set, rocking yourself back and forth about this movie, what specific scenes are you thinking of?
I think the thing, when I go back and I read about this movie and I really think about it, it's because this is a depiction of suburban life. It's very realistic, very, the family, right? The kids in this movie were the same age that I was when I was watching this movie. Okay. I also think that it gets at this, it's scary because it's something that's out of your control. You're being taken away from your family. I think in this movie, you see the mom and dad so upset about, and that's the whole movie. I found this great quote that was from a reviewer wrote this at the time that the movie came out. And I felt like this really kind of gets at what makes this movie great and what also made this movie very scary to me. So this is from Peter Rainier of the Los Angeles Herald Examiner wrote, "Buried within the plot of Poltergeist is a basic, splendid fairy tale scheme. The story of a little girl who puts her parents through the most outrageous tribulation to prove their love for her. Underlying most fairy tales is a common theme, the comforts of family. Virtually all fairy tales begin with a disrupting of the family order, and their conclusion is usually to return to order." So it's a fairy tale.
Okay. Can I ask a question? The phrasing of that quote, it implies it's the little girl's fault.
It's not the little girl's fault, but it's centered around this little girl.
I know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that's very, I don't know. There's something just very scary to me about seeing a mom and dad who are trying to fight against this force, but the mom and dad almost can't. They couldn't stop. Mm-hmm. That mom and dad couldn't stop these forces from beyond the grave from stealing their daughter.
Uh-huh.
And that's
I don't
scary.
know how you would begin to do that, so,
But that's scary as like a little kid just thinking like, I can't be protected.
I see. It's like a realization that your parents can't always take care of you and protect you in the way that they need to.
And that there's these things going on that are really scary and beyond your control.
Your mom's going to listen to this podcast episode and cry.
Believe you me. My mom, we talk about this a lot, and I've given my mom a lot of crap about letting me watch this movie at a young age, and she feels very... she gets very defensive and feels very guilty about the whole thing. So I know that she's going to listen. She already knows that this ruined my childhood. She paid
Don't say that.
It did.
It didn't ruin your whole childhood.
It didn't, but it just the anxiety that this film gave me was real and tremendous, and I'm just so excited to share it with you today.
I can't wait.
So let's talk about some other fun things with it, because as you implied, as you said, there is this whole other thing with this movie, this thing called the Poltergeist curse. So this movie stars Craig T. Nelson, JoBeth Williams, Heather O'Rourke, who's the little girl Carol Ann, Dominique Dunn, Oliver Robbins, and Zelda Rubenstein, who is the little...
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, you know that lady. So before we get into the curse, some of the other the big controversy at the time when this came out is that the directing credit for this movie went to Tobe Hooper. Tobe Hooper did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and is kind of a horror film guy. Steven Spielberg realized that he wasn't going to be able to direct this movie. He wrote this movie, but because of the shooting schedule with E.T., he wasn't going to be able to direct it. So he is a producer and writer on this and selected Tobe Hooper to direct it.
Okay.
However, at the time, there was a lot of talk that Tobe Hooper was there, but Steven Spielberg was on set pretty much every day except for 3, and he was the one who kind of did all the stuff with it.
He was leading the way.
He was leading the way. The quote from Steven Spielberg was that, this is from Frank Marshall, was the other producer of this movie, said that Tobe isn't a take charge kind of guy. And Frank Marshall said that Steven Spielberg was really the creative force behind this movie. Okay. So when you see it, it certainly has that Spielberg look and feel to it, even though he's not credited as the director on it. But it got to a point where there was a suit because they felt like all this talk that was going on really diminished Tobe Hooper as having the credit for it, and he was paid out $15,000 extra for it because of that. And Steven Spielberg wrote an open letter to The Hollywood Reporter where he basically tried to set the record straight and said, Tobe Hooper did direct this and whatever. But people still to this day are like, yeah, he can say what he wants to say, but he definitely was there on set and he was the person giving a lot of the direction throughout this whole thing. So there's that part of it. There's also a lot of things, I also wanted to note that the little girl in this, Heather O'Rourke, that role was originally going to go to Drew Barrymore. Oh, okay. But then they decided that they wanted someone more angelic. But then Drew Barrymore got Gertie in E.T. instead.
Right.
So I thought that was an interesting thing as well. This movie is, in this movie, there's a scene where part of this movie is that they're digging a swimming pool, like an in-ground swimming pool next to their house. And there's a part in it where the mom gets in and she's swimming because she thinks that one of her children is has fallen in the night because they can't find their child. So she jumps in to try and see
to the dirt swimming pool?
To the dirt. It's just it's rainy, so it's like there's water in it, but it's not like a finished swimming pool. And all these skeletons are coming up in the pool.
I remember that.
So those were real skeletons,
like real bones,
human skeletons.
Yeah,
that they used the set. People thought it would be easier to just buy, apparently at the time, it was easier to just buy a bunch of human skeletons than it was to make something that
like, that guy, he sells the human skeletons just right down the street, and it's not Halloween time, so this is just the easiest way.
And I can just get them for so much cheaper.
Right.
And honestly, no one's going to know the difference.
And he's going to give us a deal.
It's going to be a steal.
I mean, he's got to get rid of them. We need them. Perfect.
Why would it be? Right. This is a no-brainer.
Right. God.
But the story with it is that they never told JoBeth Williams, who was getting in this pool with a bunch of human skeletons. Would that not freak you out?
It's not like there's any flesh on them.
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't swim in a pool with bones.
No, never.
Real bones?
No. I'd say this.
Would she get paid to do this movie? You wouldn't do it for that amount of money?
This would be a call to my manager moment. This would be a call to my manager moment.
And then you would be labeled a diva. No one would want to work with you anymore.
For not wanting to swim in a mud pool with human bones?
I think the mud pool is worse than the bones. We're
gonna watch this movie, and you're gonna watch that scene knowing that those are human bones.
Okay.
And you're gonna be scared shitless.
They're dry bones.
I can't believe how nonchalant you're being about this whole thing. I thought you'd be at least a little bit grossed out.
I'd be more nervous about what was in the mud.
Okay. Touche.
I'm being honest.
I gotcha. Well, what they say is that because all of these desecrated human remains were utilized in the filming of this movie, that there's a curse that was placed on all of the people who were in this movie.
All right.
Okay. So Dominique Dunne is kind of a famous case. I know they did her story on My Favorite Murder. Her father was a famous journalist. Mm-hmm. She was pretty young in this movie, early 20s, but within a year or two of it coming out, she was strangled by she was stalked and then strangled by an ex-boyfriend.
Wow.
Yeah, and she went into a coma. She lived for 2 weeks or something in a coma, but then died. Ugh. Yeah, and you'll see her in this. She's very young. She's very beautiful. The other sad story is that the little girl in this, Heather O'Rourke, she died. She was in the sequels, the original sequels 2 and 3, but then she died at 12 years old from intestinal stenosis. So her intestines got twisted up.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So she was 12 years old. She really never got to grow up and have, anything else with this.
Nothing happened to Craig T. Nelson though. He did all right.
Craig T. Nelson's doing great.
Holding strong.
Coach. I love Craig T. Nelson.
I know.
How can you not? And in this, you love him. I also have to say that JoBeth Williams in this, I think, delivers a powerhouse performance of just, if mom's on film. Where you're just
mom's on film.
Exactly. She is just going to save her babies. She's just amazing in this movie.
What else was she in?
Gosh, other things.
I know the name and I know her face, but I just can't think of what else she was in.
Yeah, she's definitely been in some other things. There's also another story that I didn't know, but I found when I was reading this, is there's another scene in this movie, kind of famous scene, where the little boy gets pulled under a bed and he's being strangled by a clown doll. Yeah. Also terrifying. And he was really being strangled. The way that it was around him and they were pulling on it, it was strangling him, and he was saying please stop, no, and they thought that he was just acting.
He was just really good at acting.
Right, and then he started turning blue and they were oh no. Stop the thing. So that happened in there. But like I said, this won awards. The music in this won awards, and I will say that's probably because the music is scary as fuck.
Okay.
The music lends itself to the reason why, I could sing it to you right now. The music in this movie, it's really freaking scary.
You heard it here, guys. Really freaking scary.
Right. So I would say, I'm very apprehensive about watching this movie today. But I also feel like it's one that if we're doing this thing and we're watching movies that impacted us as children, well, hell yeah, we got to watch Poltergeist.
Right. Hell yeah, let's go watch it.
All right. Well, we'll be back. Keep me safe, Cam.
Confidently controversial.
All right, guys, we're really excited because we have to tell you about
Blue Wire Media.
Woo!
Blue Wire is an award-winning, full-service marketing agency and production company that helps businesses succeed. How did they do that, Kim?
How?
They do that with videos, photos, websites, social media production stuff. They do consulting, design. These guys are full service for all of your marketing needs.
Yes, and I can tell you personally, firsthand, that I have worked with Mr. Steven Aceto, who is the owner, operator, business creator, extraordinaire.
All of those things.
Of Blue Wire Media. And he's just one of my favorite people to work with because he's a really creative person. And he's always taken every project that we've worked on to the next level. So go check out Blue Wire Media at bluewiremedia.com/cc and learn more about all the great things that Blue Wire can do for you. Do it.
Confidently controversial.
Nobody make any sudden movements. Emily's real scared.
Man, I really am.
Oh, jeez.
It's a scary, scary movie. Do you not think that?
I don't think it's that scary.
Okay. We're going to talk about it.
Okay. Well, that's why we're here.
Okay. So when was the last time you saw this movie?
I mean, I only have seen it as an adult.
Okay.
So I think that's part of it.
Yes.
And to me, like, I've seen it after I've seen other horror movies that are much more graphic, much scarier, much more like, like, you know.
But I think that is what makes this so scary. It's subtle. It's subtle.
Is it?
It's not in your face. There's no cutting of Achilles tendons in this.
No, too bad.
There's no real jump scares in this movie.
Yeah.
But it kind of like cuts to the heart of just feeling safe. And I just like, I also just think, because we just watched Pet Sematary last week.
Yes.
So when I compare this movie to Pet Sematary, Pet Sematary was, it didn't look real. Like, it was kind of over the top. Even the sister was obviously a man.
Right.
Supposed to be like a little girl.
You can't get over that.
I can't. Well, because that scared me. That's been on my mind all week. Okay. But in this, it's very realistic, and it's played very realistic. And I think, to me, that as a kid and even now watching it, I can see that that's the thing that's scary about it, is you're seeing real reactions of people in this movie. We should probably give an overview of what it's about. Do you want to do? Why don't you do that?
I'll try to.
Okay.
All right. So there's this family. Craig T. Nelson is the dad. There's the mom, Mary Jo Williams. And the dad is apparently successful in some sort of real estate company. Like, he sold all these houses and basically
it's like a development.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a development in California. And all the houses look similar. There's a comment about that. And, they're living in this house. They're just living their lives regularly.
It's a great regularly. It's a great suburban life that they're living. Yes.
And then all of a sudden, we just kind of like, it's normal day in the family. Everybody's falling asleep. And something that would happen in the 80s was the TV would stop. Like, there wasn't TV 24/7. You only had a handful of channels. And at a certain point, TV stations would like sign off for the night.
They would. Now, I sort of remember that. What I remember is that at a certain point, the only thing you could watch was infomercials.
Yeah.
So
and that's still the
case.
But before that, I do remember it would sign off, and I do remember they would play like patriotic music or whatever, and it would be like, day is done, gone the sun.
And then you would have that static.
Yeah, and then the TV would be static. I mean, and then, it was just done. You were just done. It was like, go to bed.
Yeah.
We don't have anything else for you.
You should probably turn off
You should turn the TV off.
The film. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, but I think, why don't they turn off the TV in this? Well, but I was telling you while we were watching it, the last time I saw this movie was a couple years ago, and we watched it with my daughter, who is very into horror movies, and we thought, okay, let's watch this one. Yeah. And I really pumped it up like, oh, this is scary. Yeah. She thought it was hysterical. Nothing about this was very interesting to her because it doesn't seem real.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Okay, so then Craig T. Nelson, he's asleep in the chair. Everybody else in the family is asleep in their beds. The Star Spangled Banner comes on, and the little girl, when it turns to static, the little girl's basically like called downstairs by the static, like she's summoned, and she comes up to the TV and she like starts talking to the TV, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's weird, ha ha ha,"
right?
And they all go to bed,
right? And
then like the next day, chairs and stuff start moving in the kitchen, and it escalates pretty quickly. It goes from like her talking to the TV to the next day, there's like chairs sliding all over the living room, and then crazy stuff happens one night, and the girl gets sucked into the closet.
Yeah, so it's basically, I mean, in a nutshell, little suburban family, disturbance moves into the house, some sort of ghostly presence.
Is it a ghost though?
It's like spirits. I mean, that's that's the thing. So it's like spirits, and they end up taking
what
her.
The movie's about.
Okay. Yes.
She got sucked into the closet.
She gets sucked into the closet.
And then...
You're like real mad at me about this movie.
No, I'm not. I'm mad that you're so upset about it. It's not that bad. I'm sorry. I should be nice to you. I apologize.
You should be nice to me.
I always kind of felt kind of bad for you about it, that you watched it when you were a kid and stuff like that. But now watching it with you, I'm just like, get over it.
There's just something there's something about this movie. I don't know what it is. I don't even know why. I will leave here, even after watching it, I have this terrible, icky feeling, and I will have this terrible, icky, like
you're being
creepy,
slid across the floor, like Carol Ann
the
and her
tickling
mom,
in my belly,
in your belly,
pulls me across the floor. I think that, I told you, like in the middle of this movie, because when they take her away, the family's just like, well, we need to get some help. And they seek the help of some paranormal investigators, sure. Which is the woman from Network, who I should have written down her name, and the former Mr. Beyonce's dad. Stepdad.
Yes.
He was recently Beyonce's stepdad. And then they come over. And a third guy.
That kind of looks like... Richard Belzer.
Kind of. He's got like that, acne scars. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there's a point where they try, in a lot of this movie, they do a lot of explaining about what happens after you die. A lot of when you die, they talk in the movie about, you should go into the light, but some people don't go into the light and they stay here and they're really mad. It's a very confusing
message about whether or not to go into the light, because the lady's like, don't go to the light. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the one paranormal lady's like, don't go into the light. But then the new lady's like, no, go into the light. But she's trying to trick the other ghosts
to go into the light. We want the other ghosts to go into the light because they should have gone into the light after they died, but they didn't.
They somehow ended up in this house.
They somehow ended up in this more earthly plane, but they can't. They're ghosts, so they can't interact with it, but they don't necessarily know that they're ghosts. And there's a lot of anger issues there. But it sounds like there's one that's in control of them, that's trying to tell them what to do. And instead of having them go into the light, that person wants them to stay with Carol Ann, because Carol Ann has a life force, which is a light that's attracting them to that. So he can control these other spirits by saying, no, follow me, stay with I have the light. The light is Carol Ann.
And so they never named that person?
I think that person, it plays heavy in the second one.
Okay, because I feel like, I don't know that I got any of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, again... Watch this movie a lot.
Did we watch this? Same thing.
So the thing that really got me, that I thought about a lot after, it wasn't necessarily the scary parts. There are a few moments in this movie where you see a beast, a monster, a monster's there, and there's a few moments like that. The things that got me about this movie were the part with the chairs, where all of a sudden she turns around, the chairs are all stacked up on the table. That part really freaked me out. The thing I thought about a lot was the conversation that the paranormal woman has with the mom and the little boy when she talks about dying and what happens when you die and all of these things. And when I went to my little swing set as a kid, that's what I thought about. And that's the stuff that really got me, was like, I had... it wasn't, I mean, I'd always gone to church growing up. We were Catholic. So we went to church like that. You heard about heaven and that's more of the thing you heard about. But then these adults discussing this real frank discussion of death and what happens when you die really scared me.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't have any death in your life, like from an early age?
No. No, I didn't have any loved ones of mine die until I was 23 years old when my granddad died.
Interesting.
So I didn't have, so maybe that's why it was very scary to me. I mean, I don't know. I thought about death a lot, and I feel like, how they say a lot of kids go through like a religious period where I feel like I went through that, where I thought a lot about
just swinging
religion,
on your swing set.
Swinging on my swing set. Like,
holding on to the rosary.
I had to go to...
repeating the Lord's Prayer.
I mean, no joke. But, like, I remember going to... we had to go to CCD. Did you have to do CCD?
I am not Catholic.
What are you?
What
are you anyway?
What am I?
I mean, like, I don't even know you.
We went to church. We went to Episcopalian church.
So you didn't have to go to CCD?
No. That's Catholic light.
Oh, so you don't have to do any extra.
No.
So CCD, and I remember I got a reputation in CCD as being like, oh, like Emily like reads the Bible.
Really?
Because I wanted to figure out like what they were talking about. I was very worried about dying.
You're going to trick death.
Well, I just needed to know, like, if you seem to have some rules over here, I need to follow so that I don't get stuck, and I can just,
get stuck.
and I can definitely go to heaven.
Right.
Like, I'm going to follow those rules.
You're going to go towards the light.
I want to go towards light. I don't want to actually have to be in a circumstance where I have to worry about it in the moment. But if I do die, I definitely want to make sure that I go to heaven. So,
Emily.
So,
I have bad news for you.
But this is my kid brain and how my kid brain works.
So, okay. Well, if you go into a coma, I'm going to have to sit by your bed every day and tell you not to go into the light. Because you're going to be like,
light.
You're going to be like, I'm going. I know the rules and I got to go.
I mean, I might. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would now. I'd be like, no, I know not to. I want to stay. I want to stay.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think towards the end, God definitely plays a role in this, because then all of a sudden she's calling on God to give her the strength to get the kids, and then she has an extra burst of like power, and she's able to pull them a little bit harder and get them out of the room, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So he's in here.
Well, and also when the little woman fainted. Sorry. You know who I'm talking about?
Your wife?
What's her name? Like Fantasia or
Zelda?
But what's the character's name? Is like Fantasia or
her name's Zelda in real life. I don't know.
Her name is Zelda in real life, but her character. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And
you're talking about.
You're gonna act like
but I don't know her name.
Well, we're gonna find out her name right now. Her name is her real name is Zelda Rubenstein. Tangina. Tangina? Not Fantasia. Tangina.
Close.
But Tangina says, when she's talking to the mom, because the mom has to go in and collect Carol Ann, because they realize that there's a portal into the other plane through the house.
Through the closet down into the living room. Yeah.
Kiss my ass.
That guy's the star.
That guy's the star. No wonder Beyonce's mom fell in love with him.
Right.
So when she's talking to her and she's kind of getting her psyched up, and she's like, listen, you're the one, like, you're the mom, and you're going to have to, like, be the one to do this, and I'm going to ask you to do things that might go against your beliefs as a Christian woman.
Right.
And she's just like, okay.
She's like, I got it. I'm wearing my beautiful white suit that I've gotten all dressed up in, despite the fact that my child is missing in another realm.
The belt game in this movie.
So many belts.
Off the charts.
Yeah.
Like the ladies' belts, they're sleeping in the living room because there's spirits in their house, and they're just fully wearing their clothes, fully belted, going to sleep, which seems so uncomfortable to me. me.
Yeah, and I don't understand. They still have the small child. There's like a middle child boy, Rob.
Let's talk about Robbie for a second.
Poor Robbie.
Poor Robbie.
He's like in the house the whole time until they're like, you're going to go to your grandmom's tomorrow. At which time a taxi cab pulls up to the curb, and this kid gets in the taxi cab with his parents standing
20 feet away.
A large amount of feet away.
Many a feet.
A distance. And they're just like, bye.
And there's a man driving.
And he just gets in the cab by himself with a male cab driver. And they're just like, all right, you're going to go to your grandmom's. And they don't even have a conversation with the cab driver. The dad doesn't like check out the cab driver, make sure he's like a cool guy or anything like that. They're just like, see ya.
Yeah, there's a lot of really strong 80s parenting.
And then the dog gets in the car.
He
just goes. He's just like, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, there's a lot of strong 80s parenting decisions that are happening in this movie throughout.
Yeah, the daughter's going out living her best. The oldest daughter's going out like having a full social life while the house is like in shambles, breaking down.
And one of the things that when I was doing the research for this, that they talk about a lot is that that scene when Craig T. Nelson goes to he goes to like the university to talk to the paranormal people for the first time, and they're like, well, give us the ages of everyone. And he says that his wife is 32 years old and the oldest daughter is 16, which would imply that she was 16 when she had her. Although some people online are like, no, it's just his daughter from another marriage. But I'm like, they don't imply that in any way, shape, or form.
No, they never say that.
Right. So it's kind of strange that they have that. But they also said the other thing that I had never picked up on before watching this, from when I read it, was that the reason why, like, they do say at one point where Craig T. Nelson is walking with the guy who owns the housing development, like his boss.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, your daughter was born in that house, right?
Yeah.
So that seems to imply that because she was born in that house, that's why those ghosts
are attached to her.
Yes. And a lot of times with a poltergeist, it's attached to a person, not necessarily a house.
Right.
So it's not like a haunting.
Got it.
So it's more about her. But yeah, so it's pretty scary.
Yeah, pretty scary. I don't like at the end. I'm going to tell you the part that made me most unhappy about this movie.
Okay.
Is at the end, like, they think everything's all resolved, right? But they're still.
But I feel like that's a horror movie trope.
No, I know. Okay, that's
sorry.
not
I'll
what
shut
I
up.
hate.
I'm gonna shut up.
So they feel like it's all resolved, but they're going to move out of the house anyway, right?
Yes.
And the dad goes off to do some paperwork at the office, and he leaves everybody at home except the oldest daughter, who's gone out again.
Sure.
Because she's got a life to live. And so the mom's puts the two kids to bed, and then she's taking a bath or whatever. And she's taking a bath. She's going to dye her hair because she doesn't like the gray piece that came in once she came out of the closet.
She got really scared.
Right.
And her hair turned white. It can happen.
And so she gets changed and she puts on like a long t-shirt, football jersey.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like from that point on, she's very like sexualized in the way they have the poltergeist like sweep up her dress so you can see her underwear, and then she like is writhing around on the ceiling, and then I don't know, and then
it's strange. I almost feel like that end, like, third act denouement part, if that's what we're going to call it, like,
I'm not going to call it that.
But I feel like it is something that's a convention of horror movies where you think you have a big scare in the third act, you think everything's resolved, but then really there's this denouement that is used as like another really high point scare.
No,
at the very
end. But I don't like the sexualization of the mom.
I know, but what I was going to say was that I feel like that part of the, like, if you took the first big scare, first big scare in the third act is when the mom goes in and she's got to save them, and she goes through the other side, and there's a big scare there where Craig T. Nelson, who says he's not
going to drop the rope.
He says, I would never. She goes, don't let go. And he goes, never. And then what does he do, Kim?
He lets go.
He lets go. The first big scare he gets, he's like, boo, see ya, wife. But you think that part's the big scare, and that's very I'd say very family oriented. There's a lot of heart to that. The mom going in to save the daughter, and then the dad picking them up off the ground
and putting them in the tub.
Water, rebirth. So you have that in this denouement scare. It's very old, like I would guess conventional horror movie sexualization and like that. Like there's definitely like the mom part of it where the mom's like, don't hurt my babies, but it's almost like the fireworks display when just everything's going off. So it's like, we're going to throw everything at you. We're going to throw some TNA over here. We're going to have like these kids getting sucked in again, but it's like real, almost like there's a goriness to like those membranes that are coming out,
oozing out of the door, and then there's the clown.
There's the clown that comes to life. Which the whole time we're watching this, guys, Kim is Googling where she can buy a clown.
You can buy one on eBay for $33.
But why would you, Kim?
It's 50% off. That's not a red flag or anything.
Kim was obsessed with buying one of these things throughout, kept telling me how much they cost. And I was like, why are you going to buy one? She's like, I could just know that I could scare you at any time.
To which I $33. Such a bargain.
But as I told her, if she does that to me, I will fully not speak to her for a week.
A whole week?
A whole week. I will not talk to you.
Well, sadly, I can't buy the original clown because it sold at auction in June for $656,000.
Ugh. Terrible.
Someone has that in their house.
I hate
someone
that
paid
person.
nearly $700,000 for that thing.
Ugh, gross. But then I think so. Then you have that, and then you have the skeletons in the pool.
Oh yeah.
So let's go back to that because in the first half of this episode, when I talked about how this was maybe a bad thing to have real skeletons, you very much brushed it off like they're just dry bones.
Yeah, well, you didn't tell me it was raining, so they were wet bones. But anyway, no, I don't think they gunked them up. Like, they put hair on them and stuff like that. It's not like they used skeletons with hair and skin still attached. Like, they made them look like that.
Yeah, I know.
They started out as dry bones.
But doesn't it make a difference that...
If I had a dry bone right now, you wouldn't hold it? Hold my dry bone.
I don't like how you're gesturing towards me right now.
Hold this dry bone, Emily. Hold it.
I will not.
I don't think that has any... I don't feel like that's gross. There's so many grosser things than...
But there's just a lot of skeletons in that point.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And with, like, all the different things popping up. Like, to me, I mean, there's definitely a lot of scary stuff. And the way they do... And they do this at a lot of points in this film where it's a very tight shot where you see the faces of people very close. So it's very, like, tight shot of JoBeth Williams. And then, like, these skeletons are, like, right by your face.
I do like the part when the coffins start coming through the earth. Like they start popping up out of the earth. I like that part.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, to see that there were coffins in the kitchen where, like, there's that original phenomena. There were definitely some coffins in there. But as we find out that he moved the headstones,
right? Yeah,
didn't move the bodies.
We kind of got sidetracked from explaining the.
I think it's okay. I think most people know this movie. Yeah, it's a pretty famous movie.
But it was, famously buried. The whole neighborhood was buried on a cemetery.
Was built on a cemetery.
Was buried and built. Was built on a cemetery.
Bodies were buried. A development was built.
Thank you.
On top.
I need to refresh the B part of the dictionary, apparently.
You do. It's okay.
Yeah, so they were built.
Yes.
On a cemetery. And they did not... The guy that owned it said he moved everything, but he just moved the headstones. He didn't move the bodies because of the expense.
Which, while we were watching this, we did look up if that ever actually happened or what the process.
It did.
Yeah, Kim believes this has happened in left and right in the world. My understanding is that so nowadays, if you wanted to build on some sort of land, that's part of the survey. You have to see if there's any like potential for
dead
bodies. Like, we talked about where you grew up and how there were some bodies buried there. So
and it wasn't a problem.
Well, it would be a problem if you wanted to build on top of that.
Oh.
So you have to keep that. Like, so you would have to... It's much easier for people just to keep it.
But I don't think it's not an official cemetery.
Right. But so what may have happened when someone wanted to build there was if you would have to go and see if anyone's... Like, if there's any relatives living, if there's anyone still connected.
My neighbors took the gravestones, so...
What?
Yeah.
What did they do with
Because they were
them?
afraid the kids were always playing in the yard and stuff like that, and they didn't want the kids to break them. So I think they're in their house. I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
Are you friends with your neighbors still?
My sister is more than I am.
Okay, your sister, this is the job. Siobhan, I know you're probably listening to this. I need you to find out where those gravestones are. Do they still exist? What did they do with them? And why would you touch them?
Because it's not like it was a real cemetery. It was like olden days where they just kind of buried things.
But you see it like now, what they say is that it's much easier for people instead of like moving the bodies or anything like that, which you could do. Like you could do that if you wanted to. Right. So what they say is most people just keep them and like fence it off or something and allow an easement for people to go visit. But there's been a lot of cases where like publicly, like in public lands, you had all this space that is being taken up by cemeteries, by graveyards, and people are like, well, we need to develop that. So the one I read about was a big like stadium in Chicago. They wanted to build on, and there was like 35,000 people buried in this graveyard. Wow. And so they started to go through the process of moving the actual, like moving everything.
The caskets.
The caskets and everything, moving them to a new location. But in the middle of all this, there was the Chicago fire happened. So then like a lot of the headstones got like burned and moved, so like they didn't really know, so they think that there's still like 12,000 people still.
They didn't really know. They knew. They were just like, we don't know.
So your position is that people know, and they just kind of like look the other way.
100%. I don't know if you know this about America, but people like money. They like making money. They like, getting money, and a lot of times they do that through real estate development.
But yeah, so that's the thing. That's the clincher in this movie. But yeah, the part at the end, it does get really scary, and they do finally escape it, and they go stay at the Holiday Inn, which is great.
I also like. We'll wrap this up, but I also like earlier in the film they allude to the Holiday Inn, and the older daughter is like, "Oh yeah, I know that place." And the parents are like, what? And we just have to have like a subtle reminder that the daughter might kind of be a slut. Yeah,
the daughter's living her own life. Right. And at the very end, the daughter gets out of the car and like the house is like imploding and everything. Yeah. And she's like, what's happening? And she gets out of the car and she's got like a huge hickey on her neck.
Like they can't just let her be. They can't just let her be scared.
Right. I think that and this is why I think this movie is great. I think that they really tried to make these more realistic characters and more of like a realistic family where you have an older sister, 16-year-old, who is maybe slutting it up out there getting hickeys.
You got a dad that doesn't talk that much. That's an 80s dad.
Oh my God, Craig T. Nelson, total 80s dad. Total 80s dad. And the mom is like with her beautiful hair and her belted outfits and everything. Total 80s. Like, and I think watching this, it's like, I kept saying to Kim, I had that toy. So I feel like looking at the kids' rooms, as a kid watching this, I would have seen that and felt very connected to it, and because it's a lot of the toys I have.
And also they had a pet bird that dies, bringing it back around to Emily's fear of dead things and having birds.
That's right. Right. And, well, here's something funny. I don't know if I talked about this before, but
oh, Jesus.
At some point after having seen this movie as a kid, did you ever have like where birds like fly into your windows and die from that impact sometimes?
I mean, I'm aware it happens.
Sure. So I remember one time, me and our neighbor and my brother, I feel like I may have talked about this on the podcast before, but one time we fully, like, that happened and we buried the bird. I may have talked about it on Pet Cemetery, but we buried this bird and we did the whole thing of like, this is for when it's hungry. This is for when it misses us. And when the misses us thing and like put like a tissue on top of it, like we buried it in a shoebox.
Who picked it up?
Probably Linda Patrick, I think, with maybe a shovel or something.
Okay.
And put it in this box. But the thing, like, for This Is When It Misses Us, she puts a picture of the family in there. What I did was I had a My Little Pony, like, remember those plastic wallets that you would get, and they would always have like little things where you could have pictures. So I had that, and I just put the whole fucking wallet in there, right? So a few days later,
you're like, I need my wallet.
I was like, that was a bad choice. I want that wallet back. So I went and I dug up the bird.
Emily.
Maggots. Like that part in the movie where there's
Stop
maggots.
it.
Oh, but I got it back. I was just like,
you got it out.
I got it out of there, but I don't think I ever played with it again because those maggots were in my brain.
Oh my God. No, you never told this story because it's a little fucked up.
Yeah, you know,
All right.
it happened. And I also think in watching this, another thing that I think was so scary as a kid watching this is the adults, like the panic in the adult voices. I think that's what makes it.
But at the same time, like their kid is fully missing. Mm-hmm. They easily accept the fact that she's just sucked into this other world. Mm-hmm. So they're not like overwrought about it for like the first day or two. Like when they call in those people, they're not like freaking out, which I feel like any normal parent would be like sobbing uncontrollably. There's a point where the woman's doing laundry. They're changing clothes and putting on fashionable outfits. Like, I don't feel like they're distressed enough about this situation. They stay in the home. They keep the middle boy in the home.
Well, they make dumb choices. And that poor middle child boy, the middle child boy who fully gets sucked into a tree.
Yeah. And then they just leave him alone.
And he's just standing there like full trauma.
Yeah.
Full trauma.
Yeah.
Just like, I was just sucked into a
Blood
tree.
dripping off his face.
And then he hears his sister's voice coming through the TV.
Yeah.
And he's forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, this kid is traumatized for the rest of his life. It was very scary. Watching it again, it didn't make me feel any better about it. And so I'm going to be sad for the rest of the day and scared. So
don't
thanks.
be.
Yeah.
So we are.
But we have to say whether or not we recommend this.
Oh, yeah.
So would you recommend people watch this movie?
No, it's not scary. I'm just being a jerk. I'm sorry. It's the scariest movie I've ever seen.
No, but it's a good movie.
It's all right.
I think it's a good movie.
I said it's all right.
It's a quality piece of film. Mm. It's a good movie. Watch it as a movie. And, you know, if you're scared, be scared. If not, you know, I don't know. I don't know what you're looking for. If you're looking to be scared and, like, horrified, don't watch this. No, this is not it. But it's a good movie.
Well, that brings us to the part of our show where we connect our friend, our family.
James Todd Spader. Todd.
That's his middle name.
Yes,
Really?
because I feel like in other episodes we've called him other middle names. Like,
usually motherfucking.
Yes.
And I didn't think that was his real middle name.
Well, his real middle name is Todd.
Okay. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. I think we should change it.
Okay.
So the Spader connection. So I started with Mr. Craig T. Nelson.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
That's where I would have started as well.
And then I went to, because often when I'm doing these, I think of you and you creating the post for Instagram.
Oh, good.
And I want you to have a good time searching for pictures.
I do.
Okay. So we got a Craig T. Nelson.
Yeah.
Now we get a Dax Shepard because they were both on Parenthood.
Great show.
Okay. Yes.
Oh,
so
Dax
now we
Shepard.
now we get to pull in some Dax Shepard. Let me get a little controversial here because I got to go to Ashton Kutcher.
Oh dear.
I know.
And they were on that.
They were on Punk'd together. That was the Ashton Kutcher show that actually kind of put Dax Shepard on the map, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. So they were on Punk'd. Ashton Kutcher was stepped in for what's his name, Charlie Sheen on 2.5 Men with John Cryer, who was in Pretty in Pink with
James Spader.
Enter the Spaderverse. So I got there in 1, 2, 3, 4.
And used Dax Shepard. I like it even more.
And I used Dax Shepard. Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely. And maybe having Ashton Kutcher in there might get us some more hits and views because he's, you know.
You're not supposed to say those things out loud. We're here for you, the listener, not hits and views.
No, we aren't, but we do like hits and views.
Sure.
Because you know what? It gets people to come and listen to the podcast more, and we appreciate everyone who's been listening and leaving us comments and, all the things that you guys do to show us you love us.
Comments.
Even the mean comments, which we've literally had like one.
Well, yeah.
One. That
means
mean.
we've made it.
That's exactly what it means. So, so thank thank you to everyone who's been listening to these, and I hope you've been enjoying our horror movies.
Yes. And then you want to follow us on the Instagram so you can see those great posts that Emily was talking about. That's at Confidently Controversial.
And you should also follow us on TikTok at Confidently Contro.
And if you want to learn a little bit more about us and see some back episodes of the podcast, we have a website. And it's What's our show called? ConfidentlyControversial.com. That's the thing?
That's the thing.
Good.
Yeah, you built the website. And but yes, so please go to the website. You can find all of our old episodes and kind of see what we've been getting into for the past several months on the show. Yeah, so and thank everyone, and thank you, Kim, for not being too mean to me, and thank you for not buying that clown.
I didn't buy it, I swear.
Oh my God. If I come here...
Just if you get a large package at your house, maybe just careful.
If I walk into this house next weekend to watch another horror movie, and I know you don't, but you would delight in having it sitting on that chair.
I won't do it to you, I promise.
I'll drop it off of the balcony.
That's fine. It'll survive. It will survive.
And all of a sudden I turn around and it's here again. Ah! Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to be very confident and don't be too scared. Just be confident about things.
Yeah, and don't controversially buy your best friend of 30 years a scary clown from China. Goodbye.
Confidently controversial. Confidently